bright spring morning in Atlanta, Georgia, the 3rd of April, 1968, a loving husband, father of 4 young children, kissed his family goodbye and left their home. He would never return. The next evening, at 1 minute past 6 p.m. on the 4th of April, 1968, he stood on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee, and was struck down by a single bullet. That moment is where the story begins for us. The victim, of course, was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. For many people around the world, he's an icon, a legendary historical figure. In the interest of full disclosure, I myself had the honor of knowing Dr. King as a friend in the last year of his life. It's part of why I'm here today representing his family in their search for justice. Because I lost my friend that day. I first became involved in this case in 1977 when Dr. Ralph Abernathy called and asked me to set up a meeting for him with James Earl Ray. At the time, I thought that James Earl Ray had confessed to the crime, gone to prison, and that it was a simple, open and shut case. But when Dr. Abernathy said he had his doubts about the official story and wanted to hear Mr. Ray's version in person, I knew I had to take it seriously. When Dr. Abernathy and I finally met with James Earl Ray in prison, it was easy to see he was no criminal mastermind. Soon I found myself asking, how did this small-time thief, who had already been caught and sent to prison twice, turn into a political assassin who escaped the largest international manhunt in history for 4 months? It didn't make any sense to me. Shortly after that, I became Mr. Ray's lawyer. While investigating James Earl Ray's case, I knew I would find evidence about the FBI campaign against Dr. King. But I didn't expect to discover they weren't the only national security agency targeting Dr. King. I found myself asking, why did the FBI, the CIA, and the Pentagon's military intelligence agency treat Dr. King as though he were an enemy agent from a foreign country? Why did they use their full range of counterintelligence operations against him, including physical and electronic surveillance, agent provocateurs to create violence at peaceful demonstrations, illegal break-ins to steal and plant evidence, media propaganda, disinformation, and more, targeting him as though he were a threat to the national security of this country? Did they act to eliminate that threat? I've spent the last 20 years seeking the answers to those questions. It's been more than 30 years since that fateful day in Memphis. But finally, we brought those questions and the answers we found here into this court for you, the jury, to consider. The defendant in this case, Mr. Lloyd Jowers, owned Jim's Grill, which was across the street from the Lorraine Motel balcony on which Dr. King was killed. The plaintiffs will attempt to prove that the wrongful acts of this defendant and other co-conspirators, including agents of the federal government of the United States, led to the death of Dr. King. Despite its sinister sound, legally, a conspiracy simply means that a crime involves more than one person, like a bank robber and his getaway driver. While we are focusing on Mr. Jowers as the defendant, we will present evidence to the extent of this conspiracy so you understand the bigger picture in which he was playing his part. I believe that as a result of the evidence you hear in this courtroom, that the truth will finally emerge in respect to the assassination. Now, to be truthful, we must call it what it was. Because when the U.S. government kills someone, it's properly called an execution. So what we're really talking about is the execution of Dr. Martin Luther King. One of his favorite quotes was, "Truth crushed to earth will rise again." I sincerely hope that the truth will rise again here in this courtroom, and that as a result of that truth resurrected here, those terrible events of April 4th, 1968 will finally be understood for what they were. Some of the evidence you hear will go to the very essence of this country and will shake its foundations. That's how important this case, this evidence is. We seek a verdict against this defendant because he played a critical role in the events of that day. But we will show you the responsibility for the death of Dr. King goes far, far beyond him.